Hello, we are journalists, authors and filmmakers, and we are working together to tell a story that should be one of the great political scandals of our time.
Except it's not, because politicians have covered it up. We're talking about the financial disaster that devastated countless lives. Americans have largely accepted the narrative spun by politicians, community activists, and the media that greedy bankers and deregulation sank the economy and wiped out trillions of dollars in household wealth.
We will expose this narrative as false and set the historic record straight. We are making a documentary film that will prove that it is the very perpetrators of this false narrative who are, in fact, the culprits.
And we will warn you how these same culprits are doubling down on their bankrupt policies and creating another crisis.
Not many people understand that there is, in fact, another story, another narrative about what happened in the financial crisis that has not been generally told to the American people.
We will start by showing how banks, for the first time in our history, were forced by the government to ignore credit risk. Why? To boost home ownership for low-income Americans.
Bill Clinton, I don't know if his intentions were good, but I know his intentions were to keep that black vote, to finally be called the president of black people.
No fewer than 10 federal regulatory agencies were deployed to enforce the new social policy.
And the government ordered Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the government-backed mortgage giants, to buy millions of subprime mortgages from the banks. Fannie and Freddie obeyed to their great detriment.
And why? Because if they hadn't, they would have lost their many lucrative privileges as government-supported enterprises.
I only found out 20 years later, more than 20 years later, that Acorn had been behind the effort to force Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, it turns out, to not do just pilots, but to expand their programs tremendously. And they were working behind the scenes, lobbying Congress to get changes to the Fannie Mae statute.
No job, no income, no assets, bad credit, none of this mattered anymore. Such borrowers could still get a home loan, the infamous subprime mortgage originally endorsed and promoted by Washington. When the bubble finally burst, more than half of all U.S. mortgages were subprime.
And 3/4 of these subprime mortgages were held by government agencies or government-backed firms like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac.
Now, this is not a defense of the banks. Yes, big Wall Street banks exploited the subprime craze. But the real question is whether we would have had a financial crisis without the government's role. And to that, the answer is no.
You might ask why Washington created and enforced such a reckless housing policy. Good question. Community activists like Acorn and politicians like Barney Frank were pursuing their delusional dream of economic justice.
This dream turned into a financial nightmare, the worst since the Great Depression. Those they wanted to help most, African Americans and Hispanics, were hurt the most.
They couldn't afford it anyway, but they thought with the government assistance that they could float on. Well, the tide went out and left them high and dry.
Many of these same social engineers are back at it. Now they are calling the shots from inside the Obama administration, cooking up another economic crisis, which we call Subprime 2.0.
We've treated the financial crisis as if it was deregulation that caused it. Well, it wasn't deregulation that caused the financial crisis. The financial industry is the most regulated industry in the world. So that's not what caused the financial crisis. It was government policy, specifically areas by the Federal Reserve and Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, this subprime lending policy that created the financial crisis. Well, we're doing it again.
If Americans don't know what caused the financial crisis and the Great Recession in the first place, we won't be able to stop an even greater catastrophe down the road.
We need your help. We cannot do this without you.
We're grateful for any amount that you can pledge.
Thank you.
Thank you.